Hey guys, so I want to talk to y'all about when God tells you to do something that does not make sense, right? There's a whole process that goes along with that, and some of you probably already know, most of you probably do, that when you walk with God, He will do that. He will do that. He will ask you to do things and tell you to do things that the rest of the world is going to think that you're absolutely nuts for, and they're going to think that you're not hearing from God, and you will, even in your own natural mind, wonder, is this even God? Because it makes that little sense. But I want to talk to y'all about that today. I want to talk to you about that process, because there's a process with that. Like when God says to do something, there is an absolute battle in the mind when God says to do something that doesn't make sense. But the battlefield is in the mind, and we know that, right? So with that being said, let's get right into it. I want to talk about how faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things that are not seen. You can find that in Hebrews chapter 11. That's exactly what faith is. You know, when God tells us to do something, you know, He will confirm it. For one, God will always confirm. But let's be honest, even when God confirms, sometimes you still wonder, the enemy will tell you anything that you will allow, and you will even tell yourself some things, right? When God talks to you, it is very easy to tell yourself and convince yourself that it was not God, and the enemy will help you with that process. He will help you, and he will absolutely agree with you that it was not God that told you to do this crazy thing that makes so little sense, right? But God wants His people to get to a place where it doesn't have to make sense to be obedient. God wants His people to get to a place where we just do it, where we just go. We go where He tells us to go. We move when He tells us to move, in whatever way that, if He says move to the left, we move to the left. If He says move to the right, we move to the right. It doesn't matter what God says. He wants us to a place where it doesn't have to make sense, because we literally trust Him that much. So with that being said, that's where God wants His people, and that's what He is requiring of many of His people in order to even see the blessings and the abundance and the things that God has for them. But not only just the blessings and the abundance, but also in order for you to walk in your full purpose, in order, to walk in fully what God has for you, and to step into the next part of the process of your life, you're probably going to have to. And for each person, this could look different. God may be telling one person to quit a job that is perfect for them. It's perfect for their family. It's the perfect amount of income. It's the perfect benefit package. It's the perfect atmosphere at work. And God says, quit it. Well, God, I don't have another job to go to yet. Quit the job. That makes no sense. And everybody around you is going to say not to do that, and that's not God. God may be telling some people to move to a different location that makes no sense to move to. And everyone else around you says, you know what? That's not God. You're going to end up getting yourself in a bind. God may be telling you to cut somebody out of your life that you truly see no sense in cutting out of your life. Somebody that you just believe is for you. And God says they're not for you. This could look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. But one thing I do know is that when God says to do it and it doesn't make sense, there's probably because there's a huge risk involved with it. But God is wanting to get His people to a place where it doesn't have to make sense to do what He's saying to do. Abraham, in the book of Hebrews, it says that Abraham, where was I? There we go. So Hebrews 11:8 says, and then it goes from 8 to 12. Okay, so by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place that he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith, he dwelt in the land of promise, as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, with heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Okay, so I'm actually stopping at 10. So that's 11:8 through 10. Hebrews 11. Verses 8 through 10. Okay, so right here, Abraham had to do without. Abraham literally had to dwell in a land of promise, as in a foreign country. Okay, so foreign is never easy when it doesn't make sense. Foreign is something, that represents for us something that is not familiar, something that looks totally different than what we're used to. So he was in this foreign country, dwelling in the tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. So where God is taking you, not everyone can go, but he will align you just like he did with Abraham. Isaac and Jacob, those were people who were going to the same place that Abraham was, spiritually and naturally with God. So because of that, that's why they were, it doesn't say in the tent with, X, Y, and Z with all these other people. No, just the people that were going in the same place. And sometimes you may actually feel alone. Sometimes you may feel that God's not taking anybody there with you. But once you get there, God will always align the right people in your life. Even if that is a small group, he's going to align the right people. There will be a divine appointments. There will be divine friendships, divine setups to put the right people in your life. But that's the thing, is that not everybody can go where God is telling you to go. Not everybody can do that, because he has a different place for them. Okay? Regardless of what that looks like for you, not everybody is going to walk through that door with you, and not everybody is meant to. And be thankful for that, because it's a blessing to do it with only who is supposed to be there, if that means nobody but you and God. Because if you do it differently than that, and you try to take the wrong people with you, you will suffer the consequences of it. Because the thing is the Bible talks about, Jesus told Jerusalem, how often I've wanted to put you under my wing as a mother hen does her chicks, in order to protect you, but you're not willing. Right? So what that means is, let God protect you. As he tells you to do something, do it his way, so that you don't have to suffer for something that he didn't intend for you to suffer for. Take the easy way, not the hard way, right? When God's telling you to do something, not only should we do it, but we should do it his way. That's just as important as the actual step of obedience itself. That's a lot. That is also obeying, right? That's also obedience, doing it the way he said to do it. So, but let's get to the place, guys. I really feel in my spirit that there are many of you who are really struggling, and you're wavering back and forth. I really feel that. Like, there's some people that are kind of going back and forth, like they really know that God has said to do something in their spirit, but their mind, they're really talking themselves out of it because it doesn't make sense. And you're on the fence. You're like, I could take a step forward and do it, or I'm really close to doing that, but I'm also really close to taking a step backwards and just really believing that it's not God and convincing myself of that. Okay, don't do it. Don't do that. Step out in what God is telling you to step out into, because that is the only way to walk in obedience, is to do what he's telling you to do. And your blessings are on the other side of that. There are things that you have no idea about that God has for you if you obey. But blessings are on the other side of obedience, guys. The word literally talks about that, how there are blessings on obedience. God will bless those who trust in him enough to do what he's telling them to do, even when it doesn't make sense. And I also want to cover this with y'all. There are well-meaning people out there, your friends, your family, who truly mean well for you, who truly have the best of intentions while talking to you, but who are going to tell you not to do whatever it is that you are thinking that you God has said for you to do. Okay? But the advice of your family and friends may not always line up with that, because it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. It's okay for it to not make sense. It's not supposed to. And because they care about you, they're going to tell you things like not to do that. That's what they're going to do. So sometimes it even requires keeping certain things to yourself and just doing it without talking to other people, because you don't want to put yourself in a place where you're doubting your own faith and what the Lord has said to do because of hearing the good, sound, solid advice that other people will give you. And either way, whether you talk to other people about it or not, I think it's wise sometimes to keep things to ourselves. But regardless of what you do, Understand that there are people with well-meaning intentions who will try to give you advice elsewhere because it doesn't make sense. But that does not mean that it's God's advice. Just because it's their advice, when you know in your spirit what God has already said, don't talk yourself out of it being God. And don't let other people talk you out of that either, because it's disobedience either way. But when we go forth into what God says that we need to go into, there is favor in that. You will have favor over others because of the fact God will have his hand of favor on your life in each thing that you do, because of the fact that you're in his will, because of the fact that you have aligned yourself and given him your yes, and you've aligned yourself with where he has told you that you need to be and doing what he has told you that you need to be doing. There's protection in that, there's security in that, and there's favor in that. God will show you favor in that because you obeyed, because you said yes, even when it didn't make sense, because you put this level of trust in God that everyone else said was crazy. But yet you will go much further because of your faith in God. God will take you much further than you would have ever went if you would have stayed back in the security of your comfort zone and listened to the advice of those who do care about you. But it's not their revelation, so you can't expect other people to understand what's not their revelation to understand. It's your revelation. You know what God is telling you. You can't expect other people to understand that because it's not for them. Do what God's telling you to do, guys. I am doing exactly what the Lord has told me to do. I'm about to make a big step, and when I do, it's okay, because I know that God has said to do it, and I know that when God says to do something, that it is gonna be just fine. I don't care if I haven't seen it yet. It's gonna be just fine. It's gonna be good because God said to do it, even though it doesn't make sense. So y'all, I am in that boat with you, and I understand what it's like. But do what it is that God is calling you to do. He will open doors no man can shut, and close doors no man can open. Do what God's telling you to do. You won't regret it. You'll regret not obeying God, but you'll never regret obeying him. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we will talk soon.